Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and this chip strategy planning video for some of you guys. Because I asked you in the videos this past week to send in your team IDs so I could go through your teams and have a look at what I would do for the next few game weeks. And 4 of you guys did, and I'm going to go through your teams and check out how you can navigate the next upcoming game weeks with all the blanks and double game weeks to the best of my abilities at least. But some of these I'm not too happy with, and I have some alternative routes as well for basically all of you guys, because you can wildcard earlier in the season than game week 30. For these plans, basically I've taken into account the fact that you want to go through game week 25 through game week 29 without using your wildcard. But I'm going to get back to the wildcard strategies in a minute, because I think some of these teams would probably have a better future if they do a wildcard in game week 27, because some of these teams would need some work, I think, in general. And we're actually starting with one of those teams right here with Justin Long's team, and I quite like this team for a couple of reasons. The fact that you can get through game week 29 without using your free hit, being able to have your free hit for game week 34 or game week 37 is not something that I can do with most of these other teams. But that's basically down to this team having 6 players already that play in game week 29. And also with 6 transfers to go, with 2 transfers already for game 25, and then 4 additional transfers in game 26, 27, 28, and 29. You actually have enough to get 11 players and also bring in Solanke for game 28 when he has a double, even though he doesn't play most likely in game 29. That is also something that could change between game 26 and 27. We'll get some more information if there are any more teams that are not going to, or that are going to play in game 29. So that may change some things. Maybe Man United lose to Nottingham Forest and they have fixtures in game week 29 as well. That would make this a lot more easier for you. So that could also change your plans. And obviously this is also good because this is before game week 27, which is where you want to take a choice if you want a wildcard or not. And game week 27 is probably going to be one of those big wildcard game weeks. I think the bandwagon is going to be really like chugging along, I guess, for game week 27 wildcard. So that might be a good plan. But for this video, I'm just taking into account going through game week 25 through game week 29 without using the wildcard. So yeah, that's how I would. And now I'm going to show how I would do that with this team with Justin Long. And like I mentioned, if we go to this page here, and yeah, we look at your team currently in the FPL.team website. This is a team in game week 25. The interesting thing here as well, and what I kind of like about this team, is the fact that you still have Salah. There's still some issues with this, I guess, and that is still Salah's health. We don't really know if he's going to be ready to play against Brentford. Maybe he'll be back for Brentford, and most likely he'll be back for Luton at home, at least, I think. So you probably should just keep him, and you need basically all your transfers available. I can't really see anyone you would bring in midfield. No one really stands out to me apart from the other Liverpool guys, but that would just waste the transfer that you need to have to basically get through game week 29 without taking any hits and still not having to use your free hit in game week 29. But obviously, if there are some really bad news with Salah, you could always change him to Jota and just do that -4 eventually in the future. But yeah, hopefully Salah's back for these 2 games, because that's why you've saved him for this long. I would really like that myself. I don't have Salah obviously in my team anymore, but I think it would be really fun for anyone that kept faith in him that he actually repaid that faith and played in this game week. But yeah, let's get cracking at the plans for these upcoming game weeks. So you do have 2 transfers. So you don't have any money in the bank, sadly, so you can't really do any like major upgrades to the team. I think this is just a week where, rather than burning a transfer, because obviously you need all the transfers that you have, you just do a move for the future for game week 29 basically, and that would be Zinchenko to Reguilon. That gives you a double game week player even in this game week. If you want to play him over Stupinian, that's up to you. I'm not sure if I would. Stupinian against Sheffield United away, maybe. I mean, Sheffield United have been decent in terms of scoring goals lately, at least. So maybe Reguilon, just for the fact that he has 2 matches in place and gets 2 points from that and 2 points from that, guaranteed 4 points, pretty much guaranteed, unless he concedes a lot of goals. And he's on set pieces, and we know Liverpool can concede some goals as well, and Man City can concede some goals as well. So maybe he gets an assist here or there, but yeah, that's up to you anyway. But that's more of a future proofing for your team. Just doing Zinchenko, who's not really reliable to start anyway in game week 26 when we might need him, and he's not playing in game week 29, as we most likely know, unless Chelsea gets knocked out against Leeds in the cup. So yeah, that makes sense as a move for Game Week 25, just to prepare you for the future, basically. Then you also save your 2 transfers to Game Week 26, and this is where you have to sell Salah. You've kept him for this long, but that was for Game Week 25. You don't really need him anymore, and he's also one of the players that needs to get sold for you to be able to field a team for the next few game weeks. But the fact that he's worth so much money means that you can bring in pretty much anyone you want. Usually, I would advise people to buy Kudus at this point in time because of the money issues rather than Bowen, but with the extra money, you can go with Bowen instead, who I think is probably a better option than Kudus, especially when Antonio is back. I think Bowen is going to be playing at the right wing position again, and Kudus might be playing off to the left potentially. So I think Bowen is just going to be a slightly better pick than Kudus at this point in time. So yeah, we have enough money in the bank to get in Bowen here, and you also sort of have to sell Bart or Palmer, and this is also why I kind of don't like the strategy where you don't free hit in Game Week 29, because you sell a lot of good players, as you'll see. You sell Salah, you sell Palmer, and again, you can't really bring in someone really good for the future. You need someone that can play in Game Week 29 and can play in Game Week 26. And there's not that many players that can do that. So you could actually double up with West Ham if you want with Kudus here. So maybe you want to do that as well. Otherwise, I would say Mathias Jensen would be a different shout as well. That could be good, I guess. But with Kudus, at least you have a playing team for this game week. So yeah, pretty decent team here. You could also start Areola to have that beautiful West Ham triple up. You know I'm a West Ham fan, so I always like that opportunity. Then Game Week 27 comes around, and you can do, again, you don't really need to pay attention to the team selection here, because I'm just going to do this pretty quickly. The transfers is the most important part and how you navigate these teams. But obviously, you probably start with Richarlison and Udogie in these matches. Doughty, maybe not. Maybe over Lamptey, who you could potentially sell as well in this team. But yeah, either way, for this game week, we have Game Week 27. Alvarez plays him against Man United. Not sure if he starts that game. Maybe he does. But either way, there is another player you want for especially Game Week 28, but also Game Week 27 in Dominic Solanke. He plays Burnley away in Game Week 27, has a double game week in 28. And this is sort of the extra luxury transfer you use, because he's not most likely going to play in Game Week 29 unless Wolves get knocked out against Brighton in the Cup, and Bournemouth get knocked out by Leicester in the Cup, which could happen, I guess, potentially. And you'll know this by the point of Game 27 when you bring in Solanke. So maybe that's the case. Maybe he plays in 29, but otherwise, this would just be a luxury transfer, I guess, because he does play that extra fixture in Game 28, where most people are going to captain him, so you sort of have to bring him in. And Alvarez, I think this Man United home fixture is actually pretty good for City. But Alvarez is one of the City players that I would actually be willing to sell. So yeah, you could do Alvarez to Solanke here and have him ready for Game 28 when he's going to be your captain in that double game week against Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. And for what it's worth, I think everyone with Haaland in the team should triple captain him in Game 25. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. So yeah, that's going to be the same for every single team that I go through here, because all the teams have Haaland in their squad already. And if you don't have Haaland, I think you should probably bring him in. But yeah, Solanke gets in for this game week. And again, the West Ham boys have a pretty good fixture against Burnley at home here. West Ham have probably the best Game 26, Game 29 double up out of all the teams. So yeah, I prefer Bowen and Kudus over the likes of Mathias Jensen, for example, from Brentford. Barkley doesn't play in Game Week 26, sadly, but he's someone that you could bring in for Game Week 28, which is the game week we're in right now. Again, City against Liverpool away, probably not the best fixture, so you could always sell De Bruyne and get in someone like Barkley, who's going to have a double game week, and also most likely, unless they beat City and in the FA Cup, in the next round of the FA Cup, they're going to have a Game Week 29 fixture as well, on top of having the double game week in this game week. So yeah, that will leave you with Doughty, Barkley, and Solanke for the double game week in Game Week 28 as well. That's pretty good for that game week. And then in Game Week 29, you basically have almost a full 11 of players. You have Douglas Luiz as well coming in for Haaland. The only spot left is the striker position, and this is the best player probably to have in Game Week 29. That is Ivan Toney. He plays against Burnley away, and he's potentially the best captaincy choice. The other one would be Heung-min Son, who you could get in for a hit if you want to. If you want to do Douglas Luiz for Son, for example, if you prefer Son as a captaincy shout, you could do that and get him into your team. That's probably one of the big downsides with this team as well, the fact that you don't have Son in Game Week 27 onwards, because he's going to be really good in 27 and 29 especially. But You could bring him in for a hit either in game week 27 for Douglas Luiz potentially, or in game week 29 if you really like Son and want to have him in your team. But that would obviously be a -4 to bring in a player who, or to sell a player that is going to play in game week 29. So that's going to be a transfer you have to make if you feel good about doing that, basically, and if you feel good about having Son potentially as your captain in 27 and potentially 29, or either of those game weeks. So this pretty much brings you to game week 29 without having to use your free hit. You also have a lot of money in the bank, so you could potentially also survive here and just get Salah already in this game week, because he's going to be really nice in this stretch of matches, game week 30 onwards. You could obviously use your wildcard as well, but yeah, you're already here without using the free hit, so maybe you take advantage of that and just stick with this team. Obviously, you have another week to bring in some more City assets as well, potentially. So yeah, you have a lot of options here when it comes to the future team. But going beyond Gaming 30 is not something that I'm going to do in this video, because that would be too long. I have too much to go through in this video already. So this is pretty much my best way for you to navigate Gaming 29 without using your free hits and also still having a couple good players. But there are some drawbacks, obviously. You don't have any Liverpool players apart from Salah for this game week. Jota and Darwin could be really, really good this game week. Trent doesn't look like he's going to be fit to play, so you probably won't lose much from that. But yeah, some pretty big misses there, and you also have to sell the likes of Palmer and those guys who are pretty good for potentially like the game weeks between game week 26 and 29. But yeah, that's just something you have to do to field an 11 for game week 29 basically for your team. So that's it for Justin Long's team. It's in a pretty good position, but there are some drawbacks as well to this tactic of not free hitting in the game week 29. So yeah, just keep that in mind, I guess, for the future. But we'll get more of a clear picture in game week 27 if you have a better reason to wildcard in 27, or if you want to wait to wildcard for game week 31 or 30 or something around that time frame. So yeah, that's your team. I used 12 minutes on that, so let's move on to the next one. And this is Theo Tsaousidis, I would say. I hope I don't butcher any of your names. I think Justin Long was pretty easy to pronounce, hopefully. Theo Tsaousidis. I think you're Greek, if I'm not mistaken. This is a bit of a different team. As you can see, only 2 players playing in game week 29. So at this point, with 6 or less, or with 5 or less players in game week 29, potentially 4 or less at least players in game week 29, I think you just have to use your free hit in game week 29, or you have to wildcard in game week 27 with a team that has both a lot of doublers in 28 and players that play in 29 and can still survive after game week 30. I think that's difficult myself to fit in a team that will be good from game week 30 onwards if you're going to accommodate both double game week 28 and players that play in game week 29. So I think game week 29 is pretty awkward in general. It's just a game week where you just want to have a team for that game week and then have a new team for the next game week. So that seems to be the best case for free hit in my mind, unless you can do the dead end into game week 29 and then wildcard in game week 30, like we saw with Justin Long's team potentially. But this team has a couple of upsides compared to Justin Long's team. Already has triple Liverpool with Trent, Jota and Darwin. Also has Walker, Foden and Haaland, who all three play both the double in game week 25, and they also play in game week 26, as you can see. So 1 free transfer, 9 players playing, potentially, depending on SA and his availability for game week 26, because SA is still injured. We don't know if he's going to be back yet for game week 26, but hopefully, I mean, that's something you'd have to at least count on for this team. So let's move on to the team that Justin Long has in FPL.team, the website, which is really, really handy. And let's go through the plans for Theo Tsaousidis. And in game week 25, I think the team is actually really nicely set up. I don't think you need to do anything. I think you can save your transfer and have those 2 transfers for game week 26. I think that's more important, basically. And I think this is what you had in mind as well with your transfers last week. Just to have a team that you can field for game week 25, and then you have 2 transfers for game week 26. So I think that's a really good setup for you. Obviously, this next game week, the only thing with game week 25 that is kind of a worry now, that wasn't a worry before game week 25, is the fact that Trent is still uncertain. We still don't have any info about this, so maybe you have to sell him at this point. But yeah, I'm just gonna assume that he's gonna be back for at least one of these games. and then you just keep him at this point. Even if he doesn't play in these 2 matches, you still get a stupendous against Sheffield United away, and that's not the worst either. I don't think there's any other defender apart from probably someone like Van Dijk and those guys that you could bring in. But yeah, if Trent is out, you should probably sell him for Van Dijk, especially seeing as I think you should free hit in 29 anyway, and you don't really need... I mean, you need the transfers, I guess. I think that's the only downside, because you need all the transfer you can get in this game week. Because even if you put in game week 26, we put in the players that are on the bench with fixtures, even Eze, who potentially doesn't play if he's not fit here, you still need your 2 transfers to field an 11, because yeah, you can see Darwin and Palmer still don't have a match in this game week. But if Trent is fine for game week 25 and you don't need to do anything with him, and you can save your transfer and have 2 transfers to game week 26, then the transfers I would do here would be to do Jota out for Hwang Hee-chan, who I think is the best game week 26. If you can free hit in game week 29, I think he's probably the best game week 26 player. Sheffield United at home, pretty good fixture for him. He has pretty good fixtures in game week 28 as well, and 27 as well, and against Newcastle, who are pretty weak defensively. So I think Hwang gets into the team pretty easily here, and I think also you can sell Trent Alexander-Arnold. And again, this is sort of like a place where you can't really pick and choose too many players, because obviously you don't have any Liverpool players to choose from, you don't have any Spurs players to choose from, you don't have any more Luton players to choose from either, because they blank in this game week, obviously. So I think a player you can bring in here is someone that's a bit like not that talked about that much, but Diogo Dalot, I think he is a pretty good player to have in this position. I think Darwin is someone you can keep for the next game week, where he has a pretty good fixture. But yeah, you could potentially look into selling Darwin as well. But yeah, I have some other plans for Darwin, I think. Potentially even just keeping Darwin. I think that might be my plan, actually, looking at this right now. But yeah, obviously you're going to hope that Eze is going to be back for this game week. Otherwise, you would have to take another hit, I guess. Or you could potentially sell Darwin for someone else as well. You have enough money in the bank to buy anyone, basically. You could go with someone like Gabriel Jesus at this point as well. Maybe you want to do that rather than doing the lot transfer, potentially. If you go back again to just undo these transfers, the lots... The Trent, I think that's the thing with Trent. You get so much money from doing that. I think that's why I've done it, because there is a player in game week 27 that I want to bring in. So that's why I've done the Trent transfer, actually. Trent to the lot, just to save the money. You could still do the Darwin to Jesus move, but that wouldn't save you that much money for what I want to do in game week 27, and that would be to sell Eze, who at this point, again, still we're not sure if he's going to be fit to play, and buy Heung-min Son now that Spurs are finished with their blank, and he has the Crystal Palace at home fixture, which I think is a really good fixture for him. Obviously, Darwin is still pretty good in this game week, so you can play him rather than Dalot in this game week. For example, you still have Hwang Hee-chan, who's pretty good. Palmer can definitely come into the team. You have a bit of a luxury problem here, so maybe that's why you sell Darwin in the previous week, especially if Eze is not ready to play. You could easily do Darwin to Jesus. Let's actually just do that, because I think that's actually looking like a pretty good transfer in general. Doing this on the fly, as you can see, a little bit, even though I have planned prepared for this video as well. But yeah, Jesus plays against Sheffield United away in this fixture as well, so that's actually a pretty good transfer. So yeah, you still have that issue of who do you bench here to get Palmer back in against Brentford away. But yeah, who knows about Chelsea? Maybe it is Foden against Man United. I do expect City to have a pretty good game against Man United. They usually do. But Foden, maybe it doesn't play from start. I don't know. He scored a hat-trick against them before, so I'd be a bit uneasy doing this. But probably Hwang Hee-chan would most likely be the player to bench in this instance. Or potentially even Darwin if you still keep him. So yeah, a bit back and forth here with Darwin or Jesus. It doesn't really matter. Depends if you really like Jesus or not for that fixture. Maybe Jesus is injured for this game as well, but either way, let's just stick to what I had previously, and that was just Darwin, and then you can bench Darwin potentially if he's not ready to play in this game. Or you can play him. Again, a luxury problem to have, because you have such a good team since you're free hitting in game week 29 anyway, and you bring in Son, who you could potentially captain this game week, but I still would captain Haaland against Man United, because I think that's a really good fixture for Man City in general. Then game week 28, we have the double game week with Bournemouth and Luton, and I actually like the Bournemouth fixtures a lot more than the Luton fixtures. So yes, Doughty is still in the team, so he's going to be put into this team. Moreno, I'm not so sure about his playing time going forward. I think Dini is going to play mostly, so I think this is the play where you get another double game week player before you free hit in game week 29. That would be Senesi, who has had a bit of a goal scoring season as well. I think he has 3 goals so far in the league. Sheffield United at home, Luton at home. Some pretty good fixtures there for Senesi. You already have Solanke, obviously, who would be your captain this game week. And again, don't pay that much attention to who I captain and who I start in these segments, because I'm just basically looking at the transfers and how you can navigate these game weeks basically. And then game week 29, you can use your free hits. Probably not going to do that right now, because I'm going to do that free hit team around the time where we have a game week 29, because we'll have a clearer picture. But you can get the likes of Tony, you can get the West Ham boys like Kudus, you can get Watkins, you can get all these players that play in this game week. Obviously all the Spurs assets, Richarlison or Madison in here. You can get Pedro Porro. Like there's so many good players here that not necessarily are good players before and after game week 29, apart from these Spurs boys. But yeah, you can fit in a pretty good team. I'm not going to do that in this video because that would be entirely too long. But yeah, that's basically my idea for how you can navigate these next few game weeks. And I think you have pretty good teams just across the board, and then you can wildcard in game week 30 as well when you're faced with this team. But you have the triple city, which would probably be nice to have. You have Son at least. You have Saka's going to be good eventually. Darwin might be good at this point as well. Yeah, so you don't have to wildcard in game week 30, but I think most people will wildcard in game week 30, unless you do that game week 27 wildcard option that I did mention earlier in the video. But yeah, that's my idea for this team, basically, for the team that was from Theo Tsaousidis. Hopefully I managed to pronounce that correctly. Tell me if I did in the comments. It would be nice to hear from you guys in the comments as well. If you like the plan, if you don't like the plan, maybe you don't like the plan, I don't know. Again, I'm planning for 4 different people, so I haven't been able to completely nail down the exact best plan. But yeah, I'm just trying my best here. So hopefully it's giving you some inspiration, at least, for what you're going to do in the future. So let's move on to manager number 3, which is going to be Jonny Bernardino. And for what it's worth, I really like this name. I think it sounds like something out of Grand Theft Auto. So yeah, hopefully you're not a gangster and you don't come after me if I give you bad advice. But yeah, I'm going to give you the best advice that I can for your team. And what I like about your team is the fact that you do have 9 players for game 26 already, and you do have 2 free transfers, which means that you can field an 11 without taking any hits in game 26. So that's really nice to see. The downside is the fact that you do have Trent, who might be injured. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this with Theo Tsaousidis' team as well. So that might be an issue if he's out and not ready to play. But either way, I think you can save some money from selling Trent anyway, if he's going to be a doubt for the Brentford game, especially if he's going to be a doubt for the Luton game. But yeah, if he's going to be in doubt for any of these 2 games, you could bring in another defender from Man City, actually, which I'm going to get to when we get into the FPL.team website again to do the transfers. So I actually think you have a pretty good team apart from the Trent Alexander-Arnold problem potentially. So you could just save this transfer if Trent is ready to play, but if he's not, you can do this transfer already, because I would do it in game 26 anyway. And that would be to sell Trent and buy a Man City defender. And you could go with someone like Diaz or Walker or Stones. Yeah, you can go with any of the City defenders, basically. I think I prefer Nathan Ake still, and he's the one I'm going to select for this team as well. So yeah, he comes in for Trent. If not in game week 25, then in game week 26. But he also plays in the next game week, and that's why you can field an 11 here, even though you haven't used any hits by this point either. And I think my favorite player, again, Olise, he's not going to be back for this game week. He's going to be out for a couple months now. And I think my favorite game week 26 player to bring in here for the short term, because you're most likely going to free hit in 29 and then wildcard in game week 30, or you're going to wildcard in game week 27 at this point. And my favorite player for game 26 is Hwang Hee-chan in midfield. Just a huge favorite of mine on this channel in general. He's probably going to be on penalties, especially if Cunha is out with an injury. But even back earlier in the season, when both Cunha and Hwang Hee-chan were on the pitch at the same time, Huang was the one to take the penalty. So yeah, really like this. You also have a lot of money in the bank still, which gives you a lot of flexibility for game week 27, where you bring in another great player. This is where you sell Garnacho, playing against Man City away, and you bring in probably the best player to have for game week 27, which is going to be Heung-min Son, playing against Crystal Palace at home, because this is sort of why I'm sort of leaning towards doing a wildcard in Game Week 27 myself, because I don't have any Spurs players just to accommodate Game Week 26 without sacrificing anything in Game Week 25 and without doing any hits. But that leaves you with a lot less Spurs players for this game week in particular against Crystal Palace at home, and I think that's a really good fixture currently. But yeah, in this team you get Son at least. For this game week, you have a pretty good game week in general. You have a lot of good players on the bench as well. Palmer, who is obviously going to play because he just keeps getting points in every game. Darwin against Nottingham Forest. If we get some team news that he's going to play in this game, I'd probably have to start him as well, which means you have to bench one of these guys. And I don't really want to bench any of these guys. Maybe Watkins gets Luton away, because Luton have been pretty good at home, at least in some fixtures. Now they just lost to Sheffield United 3-1, so maybe not. But yeah, whether it's Watkins or if it's Huang, you basically just have to pick someone to be benched for this game week. You could even bench boost with this team as well, with Areola, Estupiñán, Gusto, and Hwang Hee-chan, but I would probably do this in a double game week or something instead, rather than doing that for this game week. And you could also always wildcard this game week, like I mentioned a couple of times now, as an alternative. But yeah, just playing it outright where you're free hitting game week 29. This is probably the one transfer I would do to field the best possible 11 here. You could always do the extra hits to bring in more players. You could also start Gusto over someone else, Branthwaite potentially, or Ake, depending on who is fit to play and who's ready to start and all that stuff. But again, don't pay that much attention to who I'm picking actually in these teams. It's more about the transfers and how we can navigate the game weeks with your chips and all those things that you have left in your team. Moving on to game week 28, and there's always a main guy to bring in for game week 28, and that's always going to be the same player. That's going to be Dominic Solanke. He's going to be essential basically for this game week. Sheffield United at home, Luton at home, just looks really good. And you could also make a case for a defender to come in here to from Bournemouth, Senesi, for example. You could play these three guys, not the worst. 3 home games for Gabriel, Estupiñán, and Gusto. 3 players that can get attacking returns. We've seen Gusto get assists lately. Estupiñán, at least historically, has been really good offensively. And Gabriel, we know, can score from any corners as well. And then obviously, Areola would probably be in goal rather than Dubravka for this game week. But yeah, that's what you can do for game week 28. You have 2 City players against Liverpool, which is not ideal, I guess. But it's also not the worst because it is Man City. So yeah, I think you can easily go with this. You could also, like I said, you could sell Gusto and get Senesi as well for this game week if you want to. If you want to do that double up, because you know you're going to get another fixture, and he has 2 really good fixtures as well. So I think a -4 hit would actually be worth it in this case. Potentially even selling Ake rather than Gusto just to save money. But I think money's not going to be an issue, because I think you should wildcard in game week 30 at this point anyway. And then again, game week 29, free hit. I'm not going to do that whole shtick again. You can bring in all those same players, the Tony and the West Ham players, Bailey potentially for Aston Villa. Yeah, all the other Brentford players and potentially Fulham players and those guys as well. Spurs, obviously, Pedro Porro, Udogie, Madison, Richarlison. A lot of options you can go with in game week 29 on your free hit. And then in game week 30, you would have a decent team, but you could also wildcard at any point around this time as well, if you don't like the look of your team potentially. But yeah, you'll have to make that decision when you come to that point, because Premier League or Fantasy Premier League is going to look a lot different when you get to that point of the season. So again, not going to get too bogged down into the details with this one here. But that's basically what I would do for your team. Jonny Bernardino, I hope you enjoyed that segment, and I hope you get some inspiration from it at least. I think the Son move in 27 at least is pretty interesting, because yeah, not that many players will have Son that early in the season, or be able to get him in 27 unless they wildcard, which I think still could be a pretty good option for most people, basically. Now we move to the 4th and final team of this video, and that's the team of Lestat Kilgore. I hope I pronounced that correctly as well. An interesting thing about this team is the fact that it's very different from the other teams. Some pretty interesting players here. De Bruyne is not that common, quite uncommon, but Bernardo is a lot more uncommon. Leno in goal, kind of interesting choice of a goalkeeper there, but he does play in game week 24 or game 29, as we can see. 4 players playing in game week 29 with Leno, Pedro Porro, Douglas Luiz, and Tony. And that means we can feasibly, at least with just one transfer hit, be able to field 11 players for Game Week 29. So that's what I'm going to try to do with this team. So let's again go into the transfer planner and see how that would unfold, basically. Yeah, so we start here in Game Week 25, and yeah, because we're trying to get a Game Week 29 team going, we're going to do a pretty controversial move, I guess, with this, because I am going to sell Trippier. Yes, I do know that he has really good fixtures. They're most likely going to concede in most of those fixtures because Newcastle are really bad defensively, but Trippier has been amazing attacking-wise lately. But I do think it is a sacrifice worth making, because you will get some pretty good players immediately even. And you'll also get a double game week player, because you do sell him and you get someone who can play both in the double game week now and also play in Game 26 and Game 29, and that's Reguilon for Brentford, who takes corners for Brentford, so he could also potentially get some assists for Brentford, even though he's not quite at the level of Trippier. But it does have a double game week, and it also leaves you enough money in the bank to do another move, which is kind of fun. Sell Elise, who's just going to be rotting on your bench otherwise, because he's going to be injured for a while. And that leaves you enough money to go for someone like Heung-min Son, who would be a really good boost for you already in Game Week 25. He already got an assist with just limited time in his first game for Spurs. I think he's going to be one of the biggest bandwagons now going forward, because he's just going to be essential for a Spurs team that is going to be completely healthy now. They're going to be really, really good going forward. And I think having Son already would be a huge advantage. So yeah, Trippier down to Reguilon to be able to afford Son into your team. I think it's totally worth it for Game 25. Again, you can mix and match. If you don't like Reguilon's double game fixture, you do still have Estepinian against Sheffield United away. I'm not quite as sold on Estepinian currently, because he is not quite as attacking as I was expecting earlier in the season at this point. But really good team for this game week. Triple City, which is really nice because they play in Game 6 as well. You have Jota as the cover for Liverpool. You have Solanke for Game Week 28, and you have Ivan Toney with the double game week fixtures and all that good stuff going forward as well. So really nice team for Game Week 25. Let's move on to Game Week 26, where we basically need to swap in all the players that play for this game week, but we know that's not going to be much of an issue because you had already 11 players to play. So you even have them burn as an insurance policy on the bench in case you need him, because you are probably going to make your transfer here to sell Diogo Jota, because you can bring in a West Ham player like Mohamed Kudus, or you could potentially also bring in someone like Jared Bowen, because you can actually choose between two different paths here. You could go with Bowen this game week, but that will limit you with Spurs player you can get for Bernardo in Game Week 27. So yes, I do think City have a pretty good fixture against Man United at home, but I'm not that sold on Bernardo long term. So he's nice for the double game week and the blank Game Week 26, but in Game Week 27, probably get rid of him, because at this point is where Man City's fixtures are kind of turning sour. I still think this is a good fixture, but I think Bernardo is someone you can easily sell. And by buying Bowen in Game 26, you cannot buy Madison because you can't afford him, but you can still get Richarlison, who I still think is a really good player. And this is also where Son is nice to be back, nice to have back for this game week. You can bring him in for Douglas Luiz. You can bring in Pedro Porro this game week rather than Reguilon. And you have another really, really good team for Game 27. I think this is like one of the strongest possible teams you can field in Game 27 even. This might be pretty close to what I have as a free hit team for Game 27. So really strong, even though you have enough players for Game 29. So yeah, I really like this team in general for this tactic. But that's Game Week 27. Let's move on to Game Week 28, which is obviously going to be the double game week for both Bournemouth and Luton. At this point, we're going to know if or who's going to play in Game Week 29 or not. Maybe we get a surprise team or two. Maybe Bournemouth get knocked out of the cup against Leicester, and Brighton beat Wolves, and then Bournemouth having a fixture in Game Week 29. If that's the case, I think Senesi would be the best defender to bring in, because at this point you want to bring in a defender, because you have Pedro Porro, who has a pretty tough fixture, and you can also get someone who has a double game week. Whether that is Senesi, I think it has better fixtures, but doesn't play in 29, or if it's someone that plays guaranteed in 29, who also has pretty good fixtures in Game 28, that is Alfie Doughty. I think he makes a lot of sense here as well. But as you can see, 0.1 in the bank, which is a fight you might want to go with Kudus and Madison, because I think that, rather than Bowen or Richarlison, because I think it's slightly cheaper. But still, Doughty is also a really good pick. If Senesi is ready to play in Game 29, you bring him in rather than Doughty, in my opinion. Maybe you bring in both if they're both playing in the next game week. But I think Doughty is the one that has, or I know that he is the one that has Gaming29 pretty much confirmed, because they need to beat City basically in the FA Cup to blank in Gaming29. So yeah, I think it's more secure to have a game in Gaming29, which is obviously what we're building towards here, without using a free hit in 29. But then again, we get to Gaming29 and we swap out all the players that don't play in Gaming29 just quickly to see how many players we have playing. And yes, we do have one free transfer, but we are still going to be one short, even if we do sell Solanke, who we can't really get anyone else in for at this point. This would probably be the point where we sell De Bruyne just to get enough cash in the bank here to have someone playing. You can even go with someone like Kudus for this game week. You obviously have the triple Spurs lineup here already. But if you do De Bruyne to Kudus, you have enough money as well to do Solanke to Watkins, who is probably the best Game Week 29 striker apart from Tony in this game week. And then for only a -4 hits, you have a playing team that can survive Game 29 without a free hit, and you have that chip for the future. Pedro Porro obviously wouldn't be your captain. Most likely would be someone like Tony or someone like Son, who would at this point be a pretty long servant in your team because you brought him in already back in Game 25. And I think that's quite a cheeky move, actually. I think not that many people will be able to have Son for this game week. And yes, you're not going to captain him or anything like that because obviously it's a double game week, but Wolves at home is going to be a really good game for him. We just saw Wolves concede twice to Chelsea, and we saw them concede twice to Brentford, so they could easily concede twice or more against Spurs as well, who are really good offensively. So Son in Game 25, I think it's a really nice option, and then you still only do one transfer hit to have a team of 11 players for Game Week 29. You save your free hit, and you're pretty much good to go for the future game weeks as well. And you also have that really good Game Week 27, I think, where you have just an amazing field of players with the two Man City boys against Man United. I think that's really good. Bowen has scored against Everton before, scored twice against them last season or 2 seasons ago, I think. Both the Spurs guys against Crystal Palace. I think Spurs have been pretty good against Crystal Palace past couple of seasons as well. I know I've been burnt by Son and Kane in those fixtures before, so I think that's really good. Solanke against Burnley. Yeah, just a really good team in general. You do have Leno in goal for all these game weeks, and it's not the worst, it's not the best. I don't really think you should pay that much attention to your goalkeepers, and Leno is serviceable. We know he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, actually, on his day, even though he plays for a pretty weak team with Fulham. But yeah, that's just one of the drawbacks, I guess, when you have limited transfers and you need to use all your transfers available to field a team for Game 29. But in general, I think it's a pretty nice team, and I think it is actually a pretty good strategy to have that team without a free hit in 29, the way I set it up. So hopefully that was valuable for you. This video has been a bit difficult to do because it's been 4 different teams, a lot of transfers to keep a hold of and stuff. But hopefully you got some clarity at least. I'm not sure if I have gotten some clarity. But yeah, I'll definitely have some more interesting plans in the future, especially in Gaming 27 onwards. We could see if it's more viable to wildcard or if it's more viable to keep your teams as it is. I think with this last team, I think I would keep this team as it is if this is the plan that you're going with. But either way, that has been this video. I hope it was nice for you guys. Any of you guys that didn't send in your team, maybe I'll do another video like this in the future. Please tell me if you liked it. I'm going to try to edit it all together now because I had to stop and start, which I don't usually do. I usually do this in one take, but with this video, it was just too much information at one time that I needed to stop and start a couple times. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and good night and goodbye and good morning, wherever you are, basically. Bye.